Greetings, I am in Senior English A, and today my objective is to chat a bit about Chaucer's Wife of Bath. Let's make some general observations first, then we'll go to page 180 of your hymnal, and we'll be working then with, first of all, the Wife of Bath's prologue, and second of all, the tale of the Wife of Bath. First of all, let's point out, reminding, Chaucer has an agenda. He's not only wishing to entertain, he is wishing to teach through exposure. Exposure? That is to say, he's upset. First of all, he's upset at the hypocrisy that is found within the Catholic Church. And the way he addresses it is through the satiric, ironic presentation of, among others, the partner. Notice what he had the partner say. I really don't care about saving their souls. Once they go to hell, they can go what? Go blackberry picking. Yeah, go blackberry picking for all I care in hell. Why? What is it that he says he wants of them? He wants their money, and so he preaches from a famous text out of the Bible. What is it, Mr. Nelson, that he loves to preach from? A passage from from 1 Timothy. The love of money is the root of all evil. And he says, I love to preach from that text in the Bible. Why? Because it frees the, what's the language he uses? Do you remember what they did for their money? It's called a what? Do you recall? It's that belt thingy they wore around. It frees the pelf. Pelf, P-E-L-F. The pelf is the way they carry their currency. And he says, I love it because then I can get their money. But then he ends his prologue by saying, but hey, to bring it down to a conclusion, would you like a tale? For though I am a wholly vicious man, nasty, don't think I can't tell moral tales. I can. And then he turns around and he tells a moral tale about three brothers who go off to find death in their drunken rage and instead find a pile of gold. Ultimately, they do through their greed or avarice or cupidity. All those words mean the same thing. Wanting something that doesn't belong to you or isn't good for you. They ultimately, all three die. And then the partner finishes by coming off of his little buzz that he has from drinking a little too much. And he starts preaching at the very entourage to say, why don't some of you come up and I can pardon you of your sins as long as you've got currency, to which he calls up who? The one most enveloped in sin, he says. Who does he call up as being the one, the host, right? The one who runs the whorehouse where they all started out from for their holy pilgrimage. You can kind of see the ironies are dark here. Number two. And now we turn to the Wife of Bath. Chaucer is very interested in issues of gender equity. Now, Chris Nicholas, when I use that term, what does that mean? Gender means what? What do we mean when we talk about gender? Does anyone know what's gender? Guys and girls. What's equity? Equality. So what do we mean when we say Chaucer is interested in gender equity? What does that mean? I don't understand. What is it that in his day is so concerning to him?
Equality between men and women.
Definitely. Why? Why? Because there is equality?
Yeah.
There is no equality. Why is there no equality? I don't understand. Why is there no equality between men and women in Chaucer's day? Who runs the show? Yeah, well, the political show is run by the church. Who runs the guys and girls show? It is for your now annotations, it is what we call clearly a patriarchy. Now, a patriarchy is where, what? Men run the show, women do what they're told, or what? Or they get jacked. That's absolutely right. Or they get jacked. So we are going to find in Chaucer, now, a remarkable creation. This is one of the more remarkable creations in all of literature. We're going to have a woman who will step up now in front of the group, and she will go on in your old anthologies, not this one. They had the majority of the prologue of the Wife of Bath, and it ran on 15 pages. If you'll look, page 180 is all your hymnal gives you of this prologue. The reason is not because it's boring. That isn't the reason your hymnal people, your anthology people, took out those 14 other pages. It's because it's so unbelievably controversial. What Chaucer does right away is he takes the voice now of a woman from a town in England named Bath. The very first thing she says is, and they don't put it here. They don't even put it on page 180. So you're going to have to put this in your notes. The first thing she says when she steps up and she says, "Gentlemen, let me introduce myself. I have been married 5 times. And let me tell you what I know about marriage. It is both a," she says, "misery and a woe. Marriage stinks." She says, "I don't know. I've been married 5 times. Welcome the 6th whenever he appears." The irony of all ironies, she says, marriage sucks. I should know I've been married 5 times and all my husbands have died. But she says, I'm ready for my 6th guy. And the reason is simple, she says. Because, she says, I'm a woman and all women need sex as much as men. This is the opening 10 lines of a 15-page prologue for the wife of Bath. It does not take long for the partner to pipe up and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. This they do have here, the opening lines. The partner will say, whoa, whoa, whoa. She has just said, my 6th husband will be both my debtor and my slave and bear his tribulation to the grave. In other words, she says, my 6th husband, he's going to do exactly what he's told by me. To which the partner up and speaks. I'm with you on page 180. The partner started up and thereupon, "Madam," he said, "by God and by St. John, that's noble preaching no one could surpass. I was about to take a wife." What's ironic about a partner saying I was about to take a wife? Right, to be a church guy, he's supposed to be celibate. That means he can't get married. Wait a minute, but remember what the partner himself said? He wants to go from town to town and have what in every town? A jolly wench. That is to say, the partner, he's a player. He likes to sleep with women. He doesn't want to marry. And yet notice here the partner says, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was about to think about getting married this year. Look what he says. There'll be no marrying for me this year. In other words, whoa, if that's the way things are, if this is the quote-unquote 1350 modern woman, the partner says, I want none of this. To which the wife of Bath comes back immediately and she says, yo, you got no idea what I'm going to tell you. Sit down and shut up. And immediately, you've got a radical dynamic situation where you've got a woman standing in front of a bunch of men telling a religious man, sit down and shut up and listen to what I got to say. Before Chaucer, though, goes very far, he says, through the wife of Bath, please don't be offended at my views. They're only offered to amuse. A repeating of what he had to say at the conclusion of the general prologue. Look, I'm just kind of telling you what other people said. And now Chaucer will go on in what we will argue is the first powerful feminist voice. Put that in your notes. Feminist voice. What is feminism? What do we mean when we use that term, feminism? Does anyone know what that term means? When we talk about feminism, we are talking about a voice of criticism against the patriarchy. A woman's voice that says, why do men get to run the show? The wife of Bath then will begin a long speech where she will say, let me tell you how I controlled my husbands. Let me tell you how I controlled my men. Right away, you can just kind of get a sense that all the men who are watching start to kind of squirm a little bit. And she says, again, none of this is in your hymnal. And she says, I'll tell you how I did it. She said, the way you do it is to try and keep the man always off balance a little bit. So, for example, she says, I'll give you a perfect example. She said, I had this husband, he was out every night hanky-pankying, and I knew it. And I tried to do something about it, and he would not stop. So she said, this is what I did. One evening, I come walking out of the room, and I have this slinky outfit on. And he goes, where are you going? And she says, I'm going out with my friends, and we're going to go to the bars and have fun, 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 and there's nothing you can do about it. She walks out the door. It doesn't take him but a few minutes later, and he's after her. But he can't find her. He's out all evening looking for her, going from bar to bar looking for her. She has, she says, a great time with her pals. She says, he's so dumb, there isn't any way he could have caught me and my girlfriends. But she said, finally, I realized I was going to have to drive the point home. And so she says, I come walking in at about 4 a.m. He's waiting for me. He's got his stick ready to beat me. And right as I come through the door, he's ready to get, and all of a sudden she says, I look at him and go, oh, thank heavens you're here. He's like, what do you mean? Of course I'm here. Where have you been? Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Really, I am so sorry. I went out earlier this evening and words passed between us and I was wearing a slinky outfit and then I felt bad. And so I came back a few minutes later and you were gone. And I felt so terrible because I thought, oh good heavens, he ran off to the bar because he's now mad. And I've been up all evening looking for you, walking from, where have you been at the bars messing around on me? The guy, what? What? Me? You've been messing around on me? See, this is the way it works, guys. You have your girl. You walk out of the school and she's whispering in the ear of another boy. Into the truck you both get. You are clearly upset. And she looks at you and says, what is the matter with you? What was that about? What? That. What I just saw. What was that about? What? You mean between me and... Oh. You think I mess... Oh, I thought our relationship was built on trust. That's it. I am done with this relationship. And she gets ready to get out of the truck, and you start apologizing for stuff you didn't even do. Yes. The guy's like, no, wait, don't leave. Benitez just smiles, and the guy is saying, wait, well, don't come back. What? I'm sorry. The wife of Bat does one of these. That's how I handled him. Why? She said, because everyone knows a woman is smarter than a man. She says, let me prove to you how I know this is true. And you can kind of see how the guys in the entourage are just like, urgh. She says, I'll prove to you how this is true. She says, how about money? Because it always comes down to money with married people. She says, it's all about money. And the bottom line is, it's a simple question, who's going to take care of the money? Right? So she says, we all in our houses, of course, have this thing called a safe or a coffer. And I told you about this. There's one key to open the coffer, not two, one. And the obvious question is, who's going to take care of the Visa card, right? Who's going to take care of the key, right, to get you in? So she says to her guy, listen, you always say you get the key to the coffer. He's like, you bet I do. I'm not letting you have the key to the coffer. There isn't any way. And she says, here's the deal. You're way smarter than me. And he goes, well, you're right about that. And she says, because you're way smarter than me, you have more patience than I do. And because you have more patience than I do, I should be the one who actually has the credit card. Because that will mean that I'm going to spend the money, and sometimes I'm going to screw it up, and you have more patience, so you can put up with it. Let me have the credit card. Unless, of course, you think I'm the smarter one, which would mean I'd have more patience, which means when you screw up, I would have more patience with you. But we all know that's not true because you're smarter than me. Let me have the credit card. And she says the guy would be just like, yeah, that look on Frank's face. That doesn't make any sense. And so she says, okay, I realized I went through it kind of fast. Let me go slower. And she says the guy wants to argue, but he's not sure how to argue. Well, you are smarter than me, right? Right. So that means you have more patience, right? You do have more patience because you're smarter. Because you know I'm going to screw up. And that's why. It just makes more sense. Let's just have things out in the open. Of course, it does beg a really intriguing question. Ladies, how about this? I will tell you, once I asked this question, it didn't end well. If you're going to be married and you have an option in regards to the kind of guy you're married to, you have two options. Option A is he never gives you the credit card. Or option B is he says, you are really tired. I can tell you've had a long, hard week. Why don't you go to Billings and just shop, shop, shop? Here's the credit card. Now, I remember asking this question once, and a young man in the room accidentally said out loud when I said, are you going to let your wife have the credit card and go to Billings and just shop, shop, shop? And he said out loud, I think he didn't mean to quite do it this way. He said out loud, no. That's what he said, out loud. And then immediately we heard a,
Over a credit card? Then she wasn't worth it then. Don't hit the road. Get out of my truck.
She slapped his face. But that's not the half of it. This was a guy and girl who'd been dating since they were sophomores, and they were just a few weeks away from graduating, and their first act after graduation was a planned marriage. They had never spoken about this topic. Of course, this is fairly usual. Most young people who marry, they don't marry considering the fact sooner or later somebody's going to have to decide who gets the credit card. And it's at that point that we know that about 80% of young marriages go right down a toilet. It ain't over sexual infidelity. Number one reason for divorce in America is not sexual infidelity. Number one reason is who gets to take care of the credit card. And on what grounds will you make the decision who gets to run the show? Is it the guy or is it the girl? Reminds me of that story of two students of mine who graduated and immediately got married. He worked in the oil field and she had the child at home. And one afternoon he pulls up in the brand new Dodge truck. And she's like, whoa, 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 what? Did somebody pile on you? No, that's mine. What do you mean that's yours? What are you talking about? He said, I was on my way home, driving past the car lot, went in to have a look. It's mine, brand new. Isn't it beautiful? I love the cherry red. She's like, holding her child. Honey, we cannot afford this. He's like, no, it's all taken care of. I put it on a payment plan. It's fine. She's like, honey, you're not hearing me. We cannot afford this. You got to take it back. He's like, I can't take it back. I already signed for it. She's like, no, you can take it back and you will take it back. Take back the truck. He's like, no, you don't understand. Some of my buddies that work in the oil field, they also got new trucks. That means I got to get a new truck. Now, ladies, it is an intriguing question to ask. At this juncture in the ball game, what is it that you do? This ex-student of mine was saying, I was kind of stuck. I didn't know what to do. It's like,
take the bench.
I knew there was no way we could afford this brand new $40,000 truck, no matter what some car dealer had told him, right? And I knew that it had to go back, but then he said it was part of his masculinity. He needed a new truck because the other guys at work had a new truck. Money, the wife of Bath says, is always at the root of this discrepancy between guys and girls, and she says, it's pretty simple for me. That's how I took care of it. She said, I always knew how to make him feel just a little bit uncomfortable, and that's the key. The wife of Bath says, women are smarter than men because they're better liars. That's what she says. Oh, by the way, this isn't she, this is what? Who wrote this? Chaucer. This is the genius of Chaucer. Chaucer, living in an age of patriarchy, as a male, invents a woman who says to men, who's better at lying, men or women? Men will always say women. Always. Chaucer's wife of Bath says this. Men will always say women can lie. They're great liars. Why are they such great liars, the wife of Bath asks. Because men believe them. Why do they believe them? Because men are stupid and don't get it. That's why, and it works every time. End of discussion. I'm ready for my sixth husband. There's one last question before she finishes. She says, but let me tell you about my fifth husband. She said, here's the problem. My first four husbands, I married them for money. They were old and they had money, so I married them. She said, my fifth husband, major mistake. He was hot. He was stunningly physically hot. He was an Abercrombie model, and so I married him. She said, but here's the problem. Marrying an Abercrombie model, there's a problem. First of all, he was young, which meant he told me what to do, and when I said no, he smacked me. She said, and so that was bad news. Second of all, he was hot, which meant every time he left, he was out messing around, and I pretty much knew he was out messing around. It frustrated me. She said he used to have this book that he would sit and read that told stories about women in bad light. So, for example, there's this ancient Roman story about this guy who complains that in his backyard he's got a tree where 3 of his wives hung themselves and committed suicide. And his buddy says, "Can I get a branch off that tree?" Yeah, that laugh right there. That was the laugh right there. And so you know, there's these there's these stories that are being told. And one night, the wife of Bath says, "One night I'd had enough with his stupid book." So she says, "I walk up to him, I grab his book, I tear out 3 pages, and I smack him across the face with the pages in my fist." And she says he was kind of leaning back in his chair, and he falls over backwards into the fire. And he comes out of the fire, and he's enraged. He's been drinking a little, and he's enraged, and he smacks her really hard. Bangs her up against the wall. Down onto the floor she goes, and immediately she realizes she's got her chance. And she says, "Oh, I'm dying. You killed me." And he reaches down, bends down onto the floor, and she says, "Whack!" And she smacks him for the last time. She says, "Take that, and we're even." And then she says, "Now let me die." And he says, "Well, before you die, can I at least have one kiss?" And she says, "Yeah, I suppose." And then he says, "I'm really sorry." And she says, "Don't do it again." She's like this. From that point on, she said, "He turned over the credit card to me, and everything was great for the rest of our life, but then he died. So now I'm looking for my 6th husband." She says, in her final moment, she says it this way. She says, "Here's the deal. I believe all women want to control their men. That's what they want." She said, "That's what I want, and that's what I figured out how to do." "Oh yeah," she says 20 minutes later. "Oh yeah, I was supposed to tell a story, huh?" You know, at the very end, the friar pipes up and he goes, "Yeah, that wasn't your story?" And she's like, No, I've got a real story." And he's like, he starts like this, you know. And so you get this back and forth between the partner and the friar, where the partner says to the friar, "Shut up, she's telling her story." And the friar's like, "Really?" And so you have the beginnings of a little bit of friction between the 2 guys, the partner and the friar, where the friar says, "Oh, I can tell a story when I get around to telling a story about a friar." And the friar goes, "Well, damn your eyes, I can tell a story about a partner," and blah, blah, blah. And so now you got these 2 guys fighting. Chaucer, of course, selling very well the friar's story that's coming later, which obviously we can't teach. Now to the wife of Bath's tale. This story is an intriguing one. The wife of Bath will tell a story about a knight who is driving down the road on his pony, and he sees a beautiful young girl, and he takes her maidenhead. He rapes her. And of course, during Chaucer's time, this was considered illegal, but the story is actually set in King Arthur's time. And of course, King Arthur's knights are not supposed to treat women badly. So he's brought in front of the king and queen to be executed. But the queen looks at him and she says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, he's stunningly hot. Let's not kill him. Let's give him a job instead." What is his job? He must answer in a year and a day. He must answer this question to the queen and all the ladies of the court. The question is simply this: what is it that all women want? Simple enough question. Off he goes. He says for a year, he walked around asking women, "What do you want?" And he said he got 1,000 answers. Like, are you kidding me? There's not one thing women want. So he's coming back on the day he's to be executed now, a year later, and he's obviously very sad. And he walks by this old lady sitting on the side of the road, and she's like, "What's wrong with you? You look sad." He's like, "Oh, you got no clue. I mean, I'm about to get my head chopped off because I can't answer a stupid question. What women want?" And the old lady says, "Well, I can tell you that easy, but you got to make a deal with me. Whatever I ask for, you got to give it to me." He's like, "I got nothing to lose." And so he goes in front of the king and queen, and the queen and all of her entourage is there, all the women. And he goes, "Look, I don't know, I mean, you're women. Well, how would I know? But I think I know this. What women want more than anything is to control their men. That's what they want. I'm probably wrong. You chopped my head off." The queen turns and looks at all the women, and all the women go, "He got it. That's it. That's it. That's what all women want. Yeah, even if we don't want to admit it, that's what we want. We want to control our men. You're saved." And he's like, "Really? I'm saved? I can leave?" And they're like, "Yeah, you got it. Nice job. You can leave." All of a sudden, the old lady stands up. She goes, "Whoa, wait a minute. He got that intel because of me, and he made me a deal. He said he'd do whatever I wanted." He's like, "Fine, what do you want? You want like $1 million or something?" She's like, No, you're going to marry me." And the young, stunning, handsome knight's like, "What do you mean I got to marry you? You're like old and all saggy and baggy." And she's like, "Hey, you made the deal. The deal is the deal." Chaucer's wife of Bath says that evening when they come into their wedding bed, the knight's just like, oh man, this is going to be like terrible torture. And she's like, what is wrong with you? And he's like, what do you mean what's wrong with me? Look at you. This is like what I get to sleep with tonight? Are you kidding me? And she's like, really? Are you serious? I thought knights were better trained than this. First of all, isn't it true that I am old and therefore you should treat me with some respect because I'm old? Didn't they teach you that when you were a kid? And second of all, aren't you a knight that's supposed to be like a respectful man? So shouldn't you respect the fact that I'm also poor? You shouldn't make fun of the fact that I'm poor. But finally she said, here's the thing. I'm going to give you a deal. You can have me one of two ways. You can either have me as a Victoria's Secret model. I can do this. And I'll be the most beautiful woman in the world. But here's the problem. Every time you leave, you're going to have to worry about me. And every time the guys come over to visit you, you're going to wonder if they're coming over to visit me instead of you. So that's one option. The other option is I'm going to stay the way I am, but I'll be the most amazing wife to you. I'll take care of you in every way. I'll be your friend. We'll have good conversation. I'll cook for you. I'll do everything. I'll be totally domesticated for you. You got an option. What is it? Do you want me young and hot, but you're always worrying about me? Or do you want me old as I am, but I'm going to be your best pal for life?
Two.
The knight thinks for a second. Are you ready for this? Heart of the story. The knight goes and he goes like this. You know, I'm not exactly sure what the right answer. You decide. And she goes, all right, give me a kiss. And so he kisses her. She turns into the most beautiful woman in the world. But she also is the best wife in the world to him for the rest of his life. But wait a minute. But wait a minute. But wait a minute. Follow how this story relates nicely to the prologue that she told. Who got to choose?
She did.
Notice he says to her, it's up to you. And in that moment, Chaucer, major tour de force, makes an interesting observation at the very end. Follow what he says, the wife of Bath says. She says, here's the thing about men. They don't understand, she said. Men can make us do things, but they can never make us love them. The only way we'll ever love them is for them to give us freedom to do what we want. That's the only way we can love them. And she says, once a man understands that, we'll do anything in the world for him, if and only if they give us total freedom to do whatever we want. That's the only way. Of course, in that moment, man has to give up his control, which means who wins? End of story. And the wife of Bath and Chaucer now has played a powerful game of gender, what do we call it? Relationships, gender conflict. The patriarchy can go to a different place if and only if it's willing to heed the observations of Chaucer's wife of Bath. All right, so there you go. You now have two stories by Chaucer to kind of chew on. I've given you enough background information to prep you for the exam as well. Hopefully you're ready. Question?